Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nerdy Affair, where we take our Wizard of the Coast and pair them with our saucy media setting. I'm Cody.
And I'm Joe, and we are here to set these two lovebirds up. I don't know what voice I'm doing right now.
It kind of sounds like you wanted to do a game show host, and then like halfway
Yeah,
through it, you were like, I don't know, is that too much? And then like pull
I
back a
got
little
I
bit.
got afraid of my raw power
That raw
of the
energy that you're bringing to the. Well, you know what?
of the raw charisma.
Don't be afraid of that raw energy. Let's keep eating
Bring
that.
it.
But guess what?
What, Cody?
Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is back again. It seems like he did not enjoy their date with our last one. So who are we going to set him up
Uh
with
huh.
this week?
Oh well, Cody. There we go. I'm committing to it this time. Our media setting this week is an alternate version of our world. Yes. It is a media setting that enjoys galactic empires,
Ooh.
precious stones, and slow burn storytelling.
Ooh.
It's Steven Universe.
Hooray. Yeah. And Steven.
And Steven. Hey, Cody.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I start off with a little prepared
I
statement?
would love if you would share with me your prepared
That
statement
should
for this.
that should be a T-shirt. I feel like I say this every time. It's like, do you mind if I start off with a little prepared statement?
Yeah, I
Uh,
let me hear it.
so yeah, Steven Universe is an interesting show because it's one of those shows where I personally I feel like I have to be in the right mood to watch it, which might sound weird, and I feel like maybe it's something that I would like a lot better now that it's all done, because I was a person who was kind of watching it week to week and things like that, and while I really enjoy it and I really enjoyed the show in general, sometimes I found myself frustrated because there would be long doldrums between episodes coming out. Um,
Dude, I feel that.
but like, and then you would get to the episodes and it would be like, so I waited like 2 months and I learned like one thing.
Yeah.
Bah! Um, but there is and then there were times it was just easy to lose track of it,
Yep, yep, yep.
where someone would be like, "Do you watch a new Steven Universe?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, and they're like, "Oh, a new Steven Universe came out." I was like, "Oh, shit, okay." No, I haven't. But I feel like there's a lot to like about it. Um,
100%. It's a great show.
yeah, it's very charming and it's a fun world, and there's lots of cool, neat ideas, and man, it's a show that makes you think and it has a good old heart.
Yeah, it's a
So,
very unique take on a very classic trope
sure.
that has been done and done again. Like if you were to tell somebody the plot or like kind of yeah, the overarching plot of Steven Universe without telling them the nuances of the show, they would be like, "Well, I've seen this a million times. What is new about it?" Like,
Sure.
but anyways,
Yeah. Do you wanna get the ball rolling on
sure.
or would you
Yeah.
like me to?
So basically what we're doing is we are taking Steven Universe and creating mechanics that better facilitate that kind of experience at your table, whether it's a one shot or a whole campaign. And
Sure.
my first mechanic, which is a pretty big part of the show, in a lot of cases, and that is gem resurrections and death.
Ooh.
Um, so if you're familiar with Steven Universe, gems have kind of a unique form of life. Um, in the show, being defeated, quote unquote, in combat doesn't mean the end for that gem. And in most cases, they come back after some R&R, or in some wilder cases, they turn into crazy monsters and, rampage throughout the cosmos. But in our game, we're going to use those same principles, but convert them to a 5e system that feels good. Note to players, this if you're familiar or experienced with 5th edition, this may appear like a pretty game-changing thing, but we'll get into that. When a gem falls in combat and is reduced to 0 hit points, this also includes any fusion forms. They are converted to their gem. When you're in your gem, your state, when you're in your gem state, rather, your AC is 15, which in low-level D&D is pretty good. And only 3 successful attacks from an opponent can truly destroy a gem. The gem can be treated as a small object and therefore be put away as an object interaction. If you've been defeated this way, the only way to revert back to your original form is if your party takes a short rest where you will come back with 1 HP. For every time you've been wounded in your gem form, it will take that many days to revert back to your normal form. So what that means, for those of you not super familiar with 5e, is death in Dungeons and Dragons, especially early on, is almost guaranteed. And with this ability, both mechanically but also thematically, the players have a little more staying power. Granted, this is one of those things where, on one hand, it's very hard for you to die, because if you get turned into a gem, someone can literally just pick you up, put them in your pocket, and you're safe. Basically the way it kind of balances out is, you lose a player when they hit 0 HP, and you gotta wait for a short rest or a long rest, depending on how bad it is. So there's kind of a trade-off. Like you falling to 0 hit points isn't quite as super crazy, but also, there's a trade-off there. Like, yeah, it's very easy to protect a fallen comrade, and they only really get messed up if they've been attacked 3 times from another person. So, like, you have to be careful about that. But in my opinion, I think that's balanced out by the fact that you need a short rest. But if you're the game master running this, you could also just stick to the traditional rules of healing in 5e, where healing someone from 0 hit points will bring them back. You can always do that, but in my opinion, I think this is kind of an interesting way to keep people on their toes when combat starts to get a little hairy, which will lead into a GM kind of pitfall and concern later. But why don't you tell me about the mechanic you brought to the table?
Yeah, I brought a big one,
Yeah,
quite
arguably the
literally.
biggest part of the show, if memory serves.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about creating fusions.
Fusion.
So
Ha!
yeah, fusions are probably like the best part of the show, in my humble opinion.
They're very cool
And
and
so
unique.
this is when 2 or more gems combine together to create a fusion of those characters. Um, so in a way, this takes their best attributes and improves them, but there are also risks involved as well. A good fusion is an equal partnership, a conversation between 2 gems. But sometimes, if there is a power imbalance or miscommunication or frustration or things along those lines, it can result in fusions being hard to manage or disruptive or maybe even difficult to break, which kind of drains at the 2 unequal gems. Okay, so this is I have come up with some ideas for creating a fusion, and I would love to hear feedback on those on this. So any 2 characters at the table can form a fusion with one another. To create a stable fusion, both parties have to agree with it.
Okay.
Once a fusion occurs, both characters choose their strongest modifiers. These 2 modifiers are combined. So, for instance, if my highest was strength, we would take my +4, and then we would take Cody's +2, and now we would have a +6, and then Cody could choose, like, let's say, charisma. All others are combined and then halved. Um, each character also chooses 2 skills that they're proficient in. This will similar idea, right? So it'd be like I would take my +3 to animal handling and Cody's +5 to animal handling and kind of go from there. Okay, so on top of this skill boost, um, at the beginning of the game, each player will choose from a list of prescribed negative attributes. Each will choose one item. So these will include things like impulsive, ruthless, overconfident, etc., etc. These are things that are chosen at the top of the game, and then basically this is information that is for the DM. Because if the fusion acts in a way that fulfills one of these negative attributes, each player in the fusion will get a tally. When the fusion hits 5 tally marks, the fusion has to succeed on a fusion check to remain together. These get more progressively difficult the more tallies you pick up. Upon failure, the fusions are separated into their original forms. So, for instance, if my character is kind of impulsive and Cody's character is overconfident and we, do something incredibly flashy, or if we do something that doesn't necessarily make sense, it becomes that much more difficult for us to maintain that fusion because we're letting the negative parts of our personality kind of drive this engine, drive this character that we're playing together. Um, as far as the fusion checks go, it would be a straight up and down dice roll. The first check would be 10, and then it would get progressively more difficult from that point onward. So those were my ideas for creating a fusion.
Interesting. I like them. I think in terms of mechanical feedback, as somebody who has homebrewed stuff in the past, I would actually because currently you have to have a fairly non-metagamey table in order to meet that tally mark requirement.
Mm.
So I think what you should do instead is I don't know what the correct answer is. I mean, I love this idea. I love smashing the stats together and then each of you taking your best stat and kind of like superpowering it while the rest of them just kind of are like okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um but to hold on to the fusion, I think maybe instead of relying on flaws to initiate the trigger, I think the 5 tally like it's almost like a barbarian's rage where it lasts so long.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and then you can extend your time in the fusion by performing flaws that are disadvantageous to the character.
Interesting.
I know that's not thematically correct because usually the flaws are what cause them to split, but I think in terms of mechanics, you're gonna get people who want to really play into the flaws to
Hmm.
extend the lifespan of the fusion in order to like get what they want. But I love
Sure.
that. I love the concept and, with a little bit of tweaking that's perfect for what I imagine a fusion would look like in this setting.
Yeah, that was kind of my thing going forward is I wanted it to be a character that both players had to have some sort of synthesis on, and then
Yeah.
um obviously they can't be in the fusion forever because that would just be like crazy OP.
Yeah, that'd be
Um
busted.
so yeah.
I love
Um
it.
yeah. I also had another kind of slight mechanical thing if
Yeah, hit
if
me.
you would impulse me. So this is kind of unplanned, but something I was thinking about a little bit is the gems and their soul bonded weapons.
Yeah.
In fact, the weapons come out of the gems. So because of this, a gem is never without their weapon.
Yeah.
But that being said, I decided to create some mechanics for this. So weapons will still act like their in book counterpart. Um, so a great axe will still do D12 damage.
Yeah.
Dagger, etc., etc. But if the character is caught surprised or unaware for combat, they'll be considered unarmed for the first turn, because they will have to like physically pull the weapon out. So while they always have it on them, unless that they're walking with it in their hands, there is kind of like if they're caught unaware, like it's not like they're always carrying their warhammer in their hand or whatever. And then
Right, 100%.
these weapons will have stress points. So basically, if a weapon reaches its maximum stress, the character must complete a long rest before they're able to reactivate it. I haven't quite decided what those would look like. Perhaps it's like, if you miss an attack, you have to roll on a sort of, so if you miss attack, you have to roll like a straight up or down check to make sure that your bond with your weapon is strong enough that it doesn't, like disappear or break in your hand. So
Yeah, that's cool. I like the yeah, because that's another big part of like the combat aspect is they basically summon their weapons at will.
yeah, so I was trying to think of a way to make that kind of unique and interesting in a D&D
Yeah,
setting.
I
So,
like it.
but anyways,
So from here, we're gonna talk about the now that we've kind of gotten the cool, fun mechanics out of the way to get your players' appetite a roaring, we're
what
gonna
up?
talk about the GM pitfalls and concerns of running a game in the Steven universe.
Sure.
Would you like me to start?
Yeah, of course.
So the big one, in my personal opinion, I think this is the one that like really embodies Steven Universe. So I'm going to start with that first, which is non-combat solutions. Steven Universe is a show about flipping the script on young hero tales. Steven has a plethora of great role models, most of them strong, powerful women. Steven's chosen weapon is a shield, and his unique ability is healing. Uh, and really, the whole show revolves around alternative solutions to pretty standard fantasy problems. Monsters need to be slayed. Steven wants to heal them. Big bad organization wants to turn you and your friends into dust. Why can't we be friends? This should also be reflected in the encounters and problems that you present to the players. While yes, there are fights in Steven Universe, and that situation is going to happen. Like that's kind of an inevitable part of, especially when you're using Dungeons and Dragons. However, I think if you really want to grab the essence of Steven Universe, I think all of your encounters should have some way of not devolving into just wanton murder
Mhm.
of another opponent, you know. So
I
like
agree.
make sure when you're crafting your problems for the players that there's an option that, that's like, hey, maybe we can talk this out, or maybe there's a way for them to reveal a clue about a way of subduing an NPC rather than just straight up killing them. Um, that doesn't mean you have to make your challenges difficult or not difficult. This doesn't mean like you can't have engaging difficult encounters. It just means that a lot of early DMs or GMs will make them, will do things like, oh, you want to talk to that person and convince them to not fight you, we'll roll this check. Well, instead of just making it a simple die roll, make that challenging. Make it several rolls. Take from fourth edition and do skill challenges and make the party interact and figure out a way to interact with this individual or this monster or whatever so that they don't have to fight it. And succeeding several roles and making good arguments are the winning condition instead of just the one social role. I think this is a huge part of Steven Universe is having those moments where Steven or the gems make friends with somebody and that person ends up telling them like a big secret thing or like a big important thing for the next encounter. I think that will uh, this will be a tricky situation if you don't plan for it accordingly.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's kind of the trick that Steven Universe was able to pull off pretty effortlessly. And as
Yeah.
you said, it's not necessarily like they're not peace, love, and understanding 100% of the time. Sometimes they
Yeah,
know
there'll be fights. Like
that they have to
don't
throw
get it
down.
twisted. You can fight and like have them fight monsters and stuff. They do that all the time.
Yeah. So my thing is sort of something for a DM to think about is the world building of Steven Universe,
Oh yeah.
which is you know a lot of the world building is done very subtly and very in the background of a lot of the show. So it's little Easter eggs that are kind of planted throughout, like a stained glass window that just happens to have four colorful spiky looking things that ended up being the diamonds or things like that. So a lot of this is done in the dungeon settings that the show sends the characters through. And these settings suggest a great civilization that has kind of run, rampant over the earth and parts of the universe, but are largely no longer an entity. Um, so as a DM, I think it's important to make your characters feel like the places they're going, both on Earth and in space, are part of or were at one point part of a more important, larger civilization. Um, so this can be done in subtle ways, like the markings of the floor, or perhaps flickers of a an old transmission or something like that. um, Perhaps it is something that your crew discovers the name of. It's like, oh, this is the farm, and it's like, what is that supposed to mean? And so I also think, though, something that was kind of neat throughout Steven Universe is there were implications throughout that the things that they are encountering in these dungeon situations were perhaps at one point not dangerous or maybe even useful, but with years of disrepair or lack of use, they have turned wild or dangerous. So this can actually go along pretty nicely with creating the non-violent solutions that Cody just talked about. So like instead of smashing things up, perhaps you can find a way to fix it or bypass it altogether. So for instance, maybe it's a security bot that is kind of going crazy, but if you're able to input the right code that you learned from an NPC earlier, it can calm it down or slow it down. In any case, the fun of Steven Universe was learning about the world that they originated from, the wonder and the majesty, but also the subtle darkness as well. So,
Yeah. And then last, but certainly not least, because this ties into the dungeon setting pretty well. It's that slow reveal.
mhm.
Um, Arguably, whether this is a positive or negative to those who've watched Steven Universe, this show is like the queen of revealing things at a very slow pace.
Indeed.
Uh, and it takes them so much time to hit major plot points or character development during the show. So if you want to simulate this aspect, I don't recommend doing a one shot of this game.
Yeah.
That's not to say you can't do it. I just think you're going to lose out on that effect. But if you plan to do more, make it a campaign, whether it's a mini campaign or a long, lengthy one. Be sure to leave subtle clues, like Joe mentioned earlier, whether it's in the dungeons or something that somebody says that doesn't quite make sense to the players. Leaving small little pieces of irrelevant information at that moment that becomes important later is key to kind of doing that slow reveal, that dramatic, like eye opening, like holy shit. Um, this means you should always be thinking about how you describe things and make
Mhm.
sure that along the way you're leaving information around that helps the parties later. Whether it's from a thematic standpoint of like how they interact with another NPC or information that can lead them to the next part of the dungeon. And this is a delicate balance because depending on the style of mission you want your players to do, you're going to need to make sure to give just the right amount of information in the moment while also making sure you're building up to a slow reveal. Remember, the show took so long for some of its biggest drops. If you can slowly put that information out and let it simmer, the and if you're able to do that for successfully over a long period of time, the bigger the impact's going to be when you do finally drop that big nugget of information. And I think a lot of, whether people liked how it worked in the show or not, it's a very like it's a really big part of Steven Universe. So like being mindful of that, of having that slow reveal, it's going to really feel like you were in your own Steven Universe show, even if you don't plan to use Steven or the original gems or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like at the end of the day, Steven Universe is one of those things where I like the implication that it is a small part in a bigger story, right?
Yeah.
It feels like one of those universes where you can kind of choose any character, any situation, and kind of make them, elevate it and bring it to the same level as Steven Universe. And so I think that one of the things that makes it a prime thing for a role playing game thing where you don't even necessarily have to meet the crystal gems in order to have a good time doing it. Which I think is a mark of a well created universe. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of places to play in, and
sure.
uh hopefully these reminders for the GM and these mechanics uh really help create that Steven Universe game that you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. And hey, Cody,
Yeah.
if people liked this episode and they want to learn more, where's a place where they can go and learn more?
They can go to our website at www.fandomroulette.com, where you can find all of our shows as they're going live. You can find our Twitch stream where I stream every Sunday and Monday. You can also scroll down past our bio with the stuff about it, and right before our social media links, there's a little area that you can fill out, whatever your internet handle online is, and a brief idea of what you'd like us to tackle, and we can turn your concept into the next nerdy affair, provided it's some kind of pop culture media thing.
And hey, Cody, if people want to tell a friend to listen to the show, but they don't use the same app that they use to listen to podcasts, where are some other places that people can find us to listen to us?
We are in the tubes of the internet. We are on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, all of your RSS catchers. All you got to do is search Fandom Roulette.
And hey, Cody, is there any places that people can engage with us on, like in the social medias, to find more, send us a funny meme or let us know that they're here for us, things like that.
You bet. We're on Twitter at fandomr_podcast. That is our Twitter handle. And if you're looking for another place to find us, we're also on Facebook and Instagram. Just search Fandom Roulette.
Also, please remember to like, rate, review, and subscribe. Uh,
Yeah.
Click the bell, all of that. Ring the bell, all that great stuff. Uh,
Yeah, let us know how you feel. You know what? Make if you want to comment down below on one of our episodes and tell us what mechanics you'd like to bring to the Steven Universe table, let us know. We'd love to hear about it.
yeah, and we just wanted to say thank you so much for listening to the show. We know that
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff out there to listen to, and we're glad that you decided to spend some time with us, little
Yeah.
old us.
Yeah.
Um, oh, and of course, Dungeons and Dragons and Steven Universe are off on their date. And as always, we will see you next time, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Hey, Cody, signing off for Phantom Roulette. This is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.